what you must do is you must find common ground. Okay? Finding common ground is getting that prospect to open up and talk about them. This is not about you, but it's actually for you. See, be enthusiastic and excited to get to know the other person because they will indirectly be responsible for feeding you and your family. Think about that for a second. That prospect is indirectly responsible for feeding you and your family. Most salespeople have a hard time doing this and making it about the other person because it requires them to be in a positive mindset all the time. It's going to require something called hard work. So the reason that salespeople have a problem is everyone is fed negativity all the time. See, we're born with a negative mindset because we're born in a negative world. Just turn on the news and it's all negative. You must rise above this and be a difference maker. You must be a sales rock star when it comes to talking to these seniors about Medicare. The question you should ask yourself is, why should the prospect go with you? In Medicare sales, we're all trying to sell them the right thing, aren't we? You cannot give them a better price than anyone else out there. We do not operate in a retail industry where your competitor can offer a big sale and try to entice your customers. So why do most agents still sell on price the old way? They do this because they've been taught the old way of transactional selling. You must start to separate yourself right now as a Medicare Rockstar and start selling yourself on a relationship. Common ground is what makes the conversation no longer intimidating. Here's the thing about common ground. Every individual has something in common with the other person. See, finding common ground with someone should never ever be fake. Common ground might be as simple as relating to somebody else's experiences. They don't care what you know, they just want to know that you actually care. See, verbalize that you have something in common with someone else. See, when you find common ground with someone, tell the prospect that you have something in common with them. Verbalize it to the other person. We have something in common. It's a big mistake a lot of salespeople make, is that when they find something in common with the other person, they actually don't verbalize it to them. Use those words, we have something in common. Stephanie, you and I have something in common. My mother was born in August as well. See, the prospect hearing you tell them that you both have something in common triggers an emotional response in their mind. It creates a powerful bond. Always verbalize the words, we have something in common with each other. Find 2 or 3 things on every single phone call, if you can, that are a common ground with the other person. See, if you can find 2 or 3 things about the other person that either you have in common or you can relate to, the sale has already been made. See, you buy from people you trust that you're connected to. The key to being a sales rock star when looking for common ground is avoiding spending time talking about nonsense. Talking about the weather is not finding common ground. It's talking about nonsense. See, let's talk about ways that you can find common ground right away. When talking to the senior population, an incredible area to find common ground is relating to them through your parents or your grandparents. Another way could be to talk to them about your kids, because almost every senior on Medicare typically has some grandchildren. If you can relate to the other person, the selling relationship will start to take place and will start to have some common ground with each other. 3 ways to find common ground in Medicare sales. So when you're talking to somebody that you've never met before over the phone, there's 3 things that you can try to find common ground in Medicare sales. The first thing is through where they live. The second place is through their date of birth. And the last place is through their employment. Let's look at each one of those separately. You can find common ground through where they live. See, the first place to find common ground with someone is where they live. People love to talk about where they live. They live there actually for a reason. See, it may be that they've grown up there their entire life, and that's their home. Maybe they just moved there to be closer to their kids or their grandchildren. If you do not take the time to get to know where someone lives right away, you do not have a right as an insurance salesperson to get their business. This is not just a necessity, but it's actually common courtesy. The second place to find common ground is through the date of birth. See, the second place to find common ground is through the date of birth because that somebody's date of birth defines their existence, much like their first name. If you want to make sure that you confirm their exact month, day, and year when you're talking to the prospect when you're selling Medicare products. If that person you're talking to is born in the same month that you're born, there is some major common ground that you both have right from the very beginning of your phone call. What if somebody stalls you on the date of birth? This is very, very common in Medicare sales where the individual will stall you on their date of birth. So if the prospect objects to giving you it when you request it, they're controlling the call and you're not. What about if the prospect says, I don't feel comfortable giving you my date of birth? We're going to go back to that 4-step process of responding back to the individual. So you want to say, I hear you, John. You've gone ahead and you've agreed with them. You've stated their first name. And then now you need to give them the facts. The reason I'm asking for your date of birth, John, is because depending on what day of the month you turn 65 will determine what day your Medicare will actually start. Let me ask you, John, what's your date of birth? See, as you look at that response, you can see that we agreed and we said, I hear you. It's subconsciously telling the other prospect or the other person that you were actually listening to them when they told you that they weren't comfortable giving you their date of birth. The other way you can find common ground is through employment. The third way to find common ground is relating to somebody by finding out what they actually did or they do for a living. Never be fake with someone or sound disingenuous when discussing somebody's profession. See, many sales have been closed based on the salesperson taking the time to genuinely get to know more about what that person did for a living. Do not ask this question with the idea of just putting a check mark next to the discovery question, or you're going to find the prospect checking you off as a person that they want to do business with for their insurance needs. Understand who you're actually selling to. See, each generation has a leadership issue and a life paradigm that defines their place in history. This is really important to know about the demographic that you're selling to. The baby boomer generation feels like they are owed something from the United States based on their service during the Vietnam era. This generation worked very hard, and the respect that this generation deserved during this time period in history was not properly handled by the federal government. The baby boomer generation is not only owed the right Medicare product for their needs, but they're also owed a sales rock star to take care of those needs for them. So when you look at the life paradigm of when you were born, the baby boomer generation feels like their life paradigm is you owe me. Play to that strength of what they're owed when it comes to their Medicare.